Don't sink your season before it even begins. Know what pitfalls to avoid with our top 2025 fantasy football bus candidates. All this and more. It's a brand new edition of the IBT podcast coming right at you.
I've been going dummy, out of bounds, putting on a clinic. Stick around, carrots in my hardware. KC, caught him in the crosshair. Look at me, been the guy calling Mr. MVP. Keep your ass on the bench by my MPC. Earn my stripes like I fix this league. Your dog's on the turf, my dog's in the street. You can find me somewhere in between. Never a dull moment like a movie scene. About to do the ops like I did this beat. Let them keep talking RG3. Coming to you live. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right, and welcome into the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for both a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. Football is officially back, and specifically the preseason variety as a Hall of Fame game gets underway this weekend from Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton, Ohio. We'll certainly chat all about the happenings from NFL training camps with some bear in mind or BS. We'll also unveil our official top 6 fantasy football busts to avoid. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, and I'm joined by a few gentlemen I'll see in Canton in just about a week from now. Back from traveling the continental U.S. is a big business, light ranch and son of a gun, shaking hands, kissing babies. That's what he does. He's Eric Romoff. Eric, great to see you. How are you following a couple weeks away, man?
Man, feeling good. Nice recharge up in the northern part of the country. Got to see what it feels like when oppressive heat is not part of your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I'm back here in reality in the sweat lodge, hot boxing it. Crispy 93 degrees in the studio back here. That's how we do, right? We try to keep things spicy, try to keep the blood flowing as we fire off these takes.
Hey, now that is some dedication from our guy, Eric Romoff. Also posting up with us is our entertainment and NFL betting expert here at IBT. He's Boston's boy, Steve Lawson. Steven, how are the summertime vibes hitting you up there on the New England shore?
Vibes are high, man. It's summertime, and it feels every bit of it. We hit triple digits today up here in the Boston area with a nice heavy humidity. But like the big talk of the summer for me has been my boyfriend's family, and I need your guys' opinion on this, is split on whether or not I should keep my hair long like this or go to the buzz cut. And I'm open for input.
Well, let us know down in the comments below. Hair type, not my specific strength. I've been getting my hair cut by one of my best friends for about the last 8 to 10 years. I kind of just go with what he says. So, Eric, any opinion from you on Steve's flow ahead of the expo here?
Your best friend here catching strays, not a strength while you've been getting your hair cut by your dude. I think your hair looks lovely, Seth. And Steve, I think you should grow it out. I have a bigger question as to why your boyfriend's family has so much say-so in your hairstyle. It feels like that should be a you decision.
So it came up because his brother was trying to cut someone's hair and was like, "Oh, I need like a reference picture for a buzz cut." He's like, "Oh, Steve used to have one and it looked good." Like, so I sent it to him, and they were all looking at it, and they're like, half of them are like, "He should do that again," and the other half are like, "No, I like his hair how it is." So
all right, yeah, maybe send us that picture. Maybe I can make a better decision, more educated guess for you. We want to make sure you're looking good out there in Canton. On the 6 today, behind the scenes, is a Yinzer, a Ginger, and a former IUP Crimson Hawk. He's Kyle Scott. Jim, are you counting down the days until we're enjoying some Busch Lights in the birthplace of professional football, man?
Oh, yeah, Jim. I never thought I'd say it, but I cannot wait to be in Ohio. I'm itching. I'm rearing to go to see Lake Erie from a different POV. It's going to be a great time with the boys.
Absolutely. As always, before we get into our bus candidates, shout out to the IBT family who's tuning in. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Also, make sure you're subscribing to the channel if you're new. We want to make sure you're a part of our story as we continue to grow. And be sure to check out the website, inbetweenmedia.com, for some fantastic written content. And while you're on the site, consider getting yourself a ticket to Draft Night Out. That is our fantasy football draft party at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio, on August 9th. If you want to come draft with us and 200 of our closest fantasy football friends, this is the event for you. We'll have a shot wheel spinning, songs of singing, giveaways going off, a little bit of everything in between as well. Now we're also currently running a hashtag weekender promo right now where you can get 10% off when you get tickets to both Draft Night Out and the IBT Classic. That's our golf scramble the day before DNO. The link is in the episode description to those events. Make sure you're checking it out and using that hashtag weekender promo to make sure you're saving yourself a little bit of money as we head to Canton. Eric, are you ready for Canton, man? I haven't talked to you in a couple weeks, but it feels like not that long ago you and I were having a good time up there in the Pocono Mountains for a little NASCAR weekend.
Man, the blink of an eye. It was going back to the Pocono weekend, and now here we are on the precipice of the Expo weekend and all the excitement that comes with DNO and the inaugural IBT Golf Scramble. I mean, look, for me, it's pretty easy, right? Like if you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. The second that I leave Canton, I am counting down the days to my return visit. So this is very much so like Christmas Eve level excitement for me.
Hey, I'm with you. I always say going to Canton, Ohio is a little bit like stepping back into a time machine, right? You're back in the 90s, the 80s. Everything's a bit rustic. Being a Rust Belt city, it kind of makes sense, but very cool place. They've done a lot of updating over the years, and just to kind of see what it's become now as opposed to what it was when I was first visiting the Hall of Fame back when I was like 10, 11. Is really, really cool. We're like right on the footsteps of the Hall of Fame itself this year. We're like right behind it, right behind the bubble where the expo itself happens. So if you hear us boozing, if you hear some carrying on, maybe smell a little something in the air, come on down, join the party. We'll have a good time out there. But boys, enough about what's happening a week from now. We got to jump right into it with a little bit of temperature check and our 2025 bus. Let's jump in.
Temperature check.
That's really spicy. Holy shit.
It's temperature check, and it's our 2025 bust candidates. We did do an early season bust episode quite a few months ago. I think this was all the way back in early February. We're looking at some underdog ADP. Today's ADP will be looking more at the consensus ADP over there at Fantasy Pros. That's pulling in from sites like ESPN, Sleeper, etc. But I did want to talk about some of the early season busts that we talked about and see if there's still that same feeling around these players for you guys. My bust of the evening was Patrick Mahomes. He, at that point, was going right around QB6, about a 47 ADP. Steve, you were fading both Derrick Henry for the Ravens and Brian Thomas Jr., very controversial picks. Right on that edge of the 1-2 turn. And then Eric, you were fading Chase Brown with a 33 ADP RB12. Eric, do you feel similar about Chase Brown now that you did back in February? And has your tone changed at all on these other players that we had highlighted as busts?
Yeah, I feel quite different about Chase Brown. Chase Brown is actually one of my highest exposed players in all of fantasy football. I think this is part of the fun thing of doing these very early off-season shows, right?
Yes.
For me, it seemed all but a sure thing that there was going to be an additional back or maybe even two added to the mix here in Cincinnati. And with that being at least a possibility, his ADP was a bit too rich for my taste. Mm-hmm. Now on the other side of the free agent window and of the NFL draft, I feel like we're looking at another circumstance where Chase Brown is going to not only dominate touches in that backfield, but be one of the opportunity share leaders at the position. So to be able to get him in the second, third round in many cases, he's actually one of my favorite players to target.
Steve, do you feel similar still about Derrick Henry and BTJ? Because I've been drafting them just about everywhere this offseason.
Yeah, I do. I haven't moved. Derrick Henry is still going way too high, and Brian Thomas Jr. is still going way too high. I don't think anything has changed other than they've brought in more talent in Jacksonville to compete with Brian Thomas Jr. and steal targets away. And Derrick Henry's another year older in an offense that, you just wonder how long he can be a true workhorse and not wear out. So I'm going to bet on father time with Derrick Henry. He and his PPR, remember, he doesn't catch a lot of passes. So he's going to be that really reliant on touchdowns. And I don't know if he's going to get quite as many. I think he's a real dangerous pick.
I called Mahomes my biggest bust of the early season, and I'm still kind of there. Like his ADP right now and ECR ranking over at Fantasy Pros, it's up at QB6. I'm closer to QB8. Like, give me Justin Fields, give me Drake May, guys, a little more rushing value added to their scores. They're kind of the start of that tier 3, but I guess I do have Patrick Mahomes in that same tier as them, so I think you could make the argument. But for me, it's like Joe Burrow's in tier 2 by himself, right there at QB5, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have all those rushing quarterbacks from Josh Allen, Lamar, Jane Daniels, and Jalen Hurts. Does that sound about right to you, Steve?
Yeah, I'd have Mahomes a little bit lower. Mahomes probably falls out of my top 10.
Baker
overall.
and Bo Nix above him in your ranking?
More like Kyler, Bo
Okay.
Nix, Justin Fields, guys like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely fading Kyler this year, I feel like, but we'll talk about that here a little bit later on. Let's get into our current bust list for the people. And Eric, I'm going to start things off with you, man. Who are you fading? Who's a pitfall for you as we head into redraft season starting up this month in August?
Oh, man, you mentioned that we're going to heat it up. So I guess of the two that I submitted, I'll start with the spicier of them. And that is your tight end number 1 off the board.
Oh, no.
Brock Bowers is very much so a fade and a bust candidate for me. I guess we can there are several reasons why this player comes to mind in this categorization. One, for the brand. If anyone has been with us in these off-season streets for the last 3-4 years,
Yeah.
you know that I am never the guy that is going to spend never mind an early pick, but in some cases a late first round or early second round pick on a onesie position like a tight end. 2, the other consideration, George Kittle exists, and I would much rather be targeting that elite tight end 2.5, 3 rounds later in many cases. But moreover, the overarching point here is that you're really drafting Brock Bowers, who's going off the board around pick 16, in many cases, a little bit closer to the 1-2 turn. You're drafting him at his absolute ceiling. Did he come in and completely set the world on fire as a rookie? Absolutely. Do I think that he'll still be among the top scorers at the position this year? Very likely. But you need everything that played out last year for to not only repeat itself this year, but largely expand upon itself in 2025 in order for him to justify this type of ADP. And I just don't think it's really all that likely to project him to push for tight end receiving records every single year, right? You think about what this team has done over the course of the offseason. They drafted Ashton Genty. They're going to be a very ground and pound, run the clock out type of scheme that we've seen from Pete Carroll, newly minted there for the Raiders for it seems like as long as you can remember in the NFL. They bring in Chip Kelly, one of the more noted schematic run game specialists in all of college football last year. We expect that to continue this year. So a lot of this has to do with just a projected considerable fall off in volume for Brock Bowers. So if we're talking about a guy that is going in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, if you still want to get one of the elite options, I think that's fine. But at this price tag in particular, projecting him to take a bit of a step back, I just don't think you're going to get a whole lot of volume for him. Although he's going to have a pretty solid season on the whole.
Steve, I don't have an issue with taking Brock Bowers and taking the swing if you want to at 16 overall. I have him right around there in my rankings personally. But at the same time, I do feel a bit safer with some of these wide receivers I have grouped in that same area. What say you? Where do you kind of land on Brock Bowers here?
Yeah, this is where 16 is definitely where he should go. It's just not going to be to me. I understand why he's going where he is. And listen, if he just replicates everything he did his rookie year, then yeah, that's what he's going to do. And he's going to do exactly that. And sometimes when we're talking about these really high elite players, we say, oh, we're drafting them at their ceiling. And it's like, well, yeah, right. There's not really any higher to go. That's why they're first round picks, but it's a one-off position. And that's the big problem for me. And that, yeah, George Kittle is going off the board sometimes in the 4th, 5th round even, and you're able to get pretty similar production out of him. And I just don't love the idea of having to hitch my horse to a wagon led by 74-year-old Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, who's I don't know either of them to ever have been tight end friendly anyway.
Yeah, never had a guy like Brock Bowers, I really feel like, in any of their systems, but you're certainly right. I'm interested in taking one of these deeper tight ends and waiting on the position. Like, I mean, I've been all about Tyler Warren. Everyone's freaking out now that he's getting snaps at fullback. I'm like, apparently you didn't watch this guy in Andy Kotelnicki's offense last year, because this is exactly who he was. He was used all over the field. So, like,
if they'd watch this program, they'd know that.
Yeah, if you did, and I believe the IBT family is a smart, group of guys and gals. So I think they'll certainly, come to this acknowledgement that, hey, while Brock Bowers is a fun pick in the second round, maybe it's not the smartest, because it does feel like you are slightly drafting him at his ceiling in a PPR league. Tight end premium, I'm there. Tight end premium, I'm in on Brock Bowers. I know you took him in the first round of Scott Fishbowl, but yeah, in regular redraft, I like this call, Eric. Steve, I'm going to throw it over to you, and let's stay in the second, third round mix with your first bust candidate of 2025, my friend.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the offseason darling of drafts, Ladd McConkey for the LA Chargers. Everyone is just we argued about this actually pretty intensely after the show last week. And we, how out I am on Ladd McConkey, and I know you love Ladd McConkey, but wide receiver 11 for this guy and this offense makes no sense, and no one will ever convince me otherwise. Listen, Jim Harbaugh does not produce high volume wide receivers, so that means you are relying for him to hit this mark to justify this draft position. He has to put up nearly historic levels of efficiency as a wide receiver. Not only did he barely make it to this kind of area last season, which was a very good rookie season, they've brought in more talent to catch the ball and take targets away from him. They've brought in 2 running backs to take pass attempts away from Justin Herbert. Ladd McConkey is not going to come anywhere close to wide receiver 11 this season. I would be actually surprised if he breaks the top 20.
It has to be more of a schematic thing, because the issue I have with Ladd McConkey and you kind of dissing on him is this was a guy who was wide receiver 12 overall after week 8 of the season last year. So he was among the best of them last year, and still, finished wide receiver 12 overall in the season as well. And I get it. Like, I totally get it. It's a little bit scary, but at the same time, I mean, there's legit upside. I think this guy has like Cooper Kupp type ceiling as a player. I mean, he is nasty with him, Eric. Like he is, as far as a route technician, he's one of the best I've seen as a rookie in a long time. And Trey Harris is in town. We're hearing a lot of hype out of Keandre Lambert-Smith there as a deep threat as well, but I don't think anyone moves the sticks like Ladd does in this offense. So I'm certainly back in on Ladd where he's going overall. How do you feel about it coming off a rookie season where he only did have 112 targets, but he turned him into nearly 1,500 receiving yards, man?
Yeah, it's tricky. Breaking the fourth wall a little bit. When I hopped into the sheet, I was going in to put Ladd McConkey's name down as one of my bust candidates, but I am struggling with it. Ladd McConkey is one of my highest exposed players in those dynasty streets. I was out here getting him for value last year. I do think that when you talk about advanced metrics, his ability to separate, his ability to create yards after the catch, and his technician, himself as a technician in terms of route runnings, there are a lot of things to like about Ladd McConkey. I'm just not sure if there's really much more ceiling for him at this point, right? So
sure,
the divining rod, the line of demarcation that I've arrived at is, if I'm drafting at this point in the draft and I have already selected a top 3 or 5 potential wide receiver in front of him, I love Ladd McConkey as my wide receiver too. If you went running back early, or you went with one of the onesie positions, or something weird happened in your draft and he is your wide receiver 1, he doesn't bring quite enough upside for me, because 112 targets is a fair amount. It's not a ton, right? Like it's not an insurmountable
He was banged
amount.
up for a bunch of games too, though. Keep that in mind. He didn't play one game and then he exited early.
But the line that you mentioned starting in week 8, where he really started to take off, was also the point where all of the running backs in this Greg Roman offense started to get injured, and now they've gone out and reinforced this backfield. So I think we're going to look at a very ground and pound, run game intensive type of offense. I still think I disagree with Steve's point. I think he'll still finish well inside of the top 20 at the position. I just don't know if he has that top 5 or 6 upside, right? I've got him right now as my wide receiver 9. I don't know if he's going to go much higher than that in terms of on-field production this year.
I think talent-wise, he could be a top 5 wide receiver, but it is the Greg Roman offense, right? Head coach
put him
Jim
in a
Harbaugh.
modern scheme, and I think he's the first wonder.
Right, yeah. So I totally get the concern, Steve. I'm going to keep swinging, I think, on Lad McConkey. I think I'm actually a little bit higher than the consensus on him. I
would say so if you have him as a top 5 wide receiver in terms of talent.
Well, I have a wide receiver 9 overall in my redraft rankings, but I do have him kind of in that third tier there, right behind guys like Drake London, BTJ, Nico Collins. So I am high on him, but I totally understand. I just think, I don't know if the Chargers can do the same type of stuff they did last year where they got bounced in the first round because they didn't have a legit aerial attack. So maybe they turn it around. We'll have to see, but did want to shout out our guy Ben for tuning in with us. What's up, Ben? Great to see you, man. And also Albert saying good evening, IBT. Good evening, Albert. Hope you're having a great Tuesday evening. Thanks for hanging out with us, everyone. Real quick reminder, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you're subscribing. Help us out. Help us continue to grow. And also give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Let's move forward here with my first bust of the night. And I'm going to stay in this pretty early realm here. And I'm going with Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. Current overall ADP of 8 flat and wide receiver 5. Sun God is pretty much exactly where he finished last year in terms of ADP. He was the wide receiver 4 on a points per game basis. That's a minimum of 8 games played. Get out guys like Chris Godwin from that sample size. But that was largely boosted by a career high 12 receiving touchdowns. The targets took a big hit for Amon-Ra St. Brown last season as well. He went from 10.3 per game to 8.3. And that was in a season where Ben Johnson still calling the plays. And we all know Ben Johnson primarily wants to feature his moving power slot wide receiver, if you would, like Amon-Ra. They also had a better offensive line. They've had a couple retirements. They've had a couple injuries. They've had a couple people move on during free agency. And that defense was absolutely atrocious down the stretch. They lost a ton of players. I think it was something over 18 players to the IR last season. So I still think that Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the most efficient wide receivers in the league. But I think the opportunity is in question after already being 31st in air yards last season, 88th in ADOT last year as well. I do think he will finish as a wide receiver 1 still, yes. But I think he's going way too close to his ceiling as wide receiver 5 and 8th overall. To me, I'm down on him. I have him at wide receiver 10. I have him as a mid-second round pick, so I would take him there. But I don't think, Steve, I'm going to get Amon-Ra St. Brown there.
Yeah, so this is an example of what I was saying about Eric saying, oh, we're drafting guys at their ceiling. Wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 4, there isn't much more of a ceiling to that, right? So some of these guys, yeah, that is their ceiling because there's no number higher. So, yes, I get that. The offensive line is worse. I understand that too. That doesn't hurt Amon-Ra St. Brown, though. That hurts Jameson Williams. When you have a bad offensive line, that ball has to come out quick.
Sure.
You cannot take the deep shots if your offensive line is trash. What's going to happen is we're going to see the targets boost back up because Jared Goff's going to have a bunch of pressure on his face. He needs to get the ball out quick. Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to be there. I think he's going to do exactly what he's done. There's no reason for me to believe he's not going to. I know the targets went down, but it was because they turned into more of a check down or touchdown kind of offense last season where it was just lunacy. Like the differences in Jared Goff had this insane run in the middle of the season where he wasn't throwing incompletions at all. And it was this insane kind of thing going on. Amon-Ra St. Brown is entirely matchup proof, quarterback proof, scheme proof. He's just one of those guys at the 8th overall pick. That's what you want. That's what you need. And your first pick over, when you have your first pick, you need a guy that you know what you're going to get. Amon-Ra St. Brown is that. I'd be shocked if he doesn't finish right around wide receiver 5 because he's just that good.
I just think if you take the touchdowns out from last year, Eric, that there was a very different Amon-Ra St. Brown that we saw down the stretch. He wasn't as dominating. And it's another year of maturity for Jameson Williams, who finally gets his feet back under him after a full season in Detroit. And we also have Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta kind of coming into their own in their 3rd season as well. So I guess I'm just a little bit down on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Do you share more my feelings on Sun God, or do you think you're more in that camp that Steve is, where you're going to continue to draft him in the first round?
I am annoyingly in the middle. I have no shortage of concerns about Amon-Ra St. Brown specifically heading into this year, but it's actually less to do with Amon-Ra St. Brown. It has to do with some of the points that Steve was levying around the changes to their offensive line, but also the changes to their coaching staff, right? Ben Johnson is out the door. John Morton heads in. We've talked ad nauseum about how we can take literally nothing for granted whenever there is a change to head coaching or play calling responsibilities. So I don't think it would be in John Morton's best interest to divert targets away from Amon-Ra St. Brown, but we have no idea, right? Legitimate open question. My concern on the offensive line front is less to do with less time means Jared Goff has to get the ball out quickly. Historically, less time means Jared Goff turns into a pumpkin. He is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL when under pressure. So yes, he'll need to get the ball out quickly, but I don't know if that necessitates that he will be able to complete passes to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I think we'll see a pretty steady target volume for Amon-Ra. I don't know if we see his catch rate hold steady where it was. And then you mentioned the touchdowns specifically, Seth, talking again about my concern, how it ties to Jared Goff. Almost a 7% touchdown rate last year.
Crazy.
Every single time that you see a quarterback come out of nowhere to have that type of touchdown rate, it almost always regresses back to the mean, right? 4.5%, something like that. So that upside is a little bit capped. But to Steve's point, love that volume floor around this part of the draft. So I think I'm still taking him at ADP. I just feel far less comfortable with it than I have in years past.
Okay. Eric, let's go to your next bust candidate for the 2025 NFL season. And I don't want to say you're punching down here, but you're definitely, kind of piling on a player that I think has a lot of hate from the fantasy football community as a whole heading into this year.
Oh, completely untrue. Known fantasy football community darling DeAndre Swift is my next bust candidate. The vibes around this player have swung so wildly over the course of his entire career, but also the course of this offseason. There was a point where I was on SiriusXM a few months ago getting name checked for drafting DeAndre Swift because he was about to get cut by the Chicago Bears. And now all of a sudden, a few short months later, he's out here as a 0 RB darling for anyone that wants to wait at the position, right? For me, it's really two things. One, he's being drafted as running back 22. That's basically who this guy is over the last 3-4 years, in many cases worse. And his upside is incredibly capped if we're going to project anything near a reasonable workload in terms of rush attempts, right? Ben Johnson comes in as his new head coach and play caller. Again, we can take nothing for granted, but we do have a bit of a snippet as to how Ben Johnson utilized this player in the past. He came in his first year in 2021, loaded this dude up with workload and opportunity, and then promptly started to shift all of that workload away from him and eventually led the team to draft Gibbs there a few years later, right? So I wouldn't say that we can put that in the pros column for DeAndre Swift. What we do know about Ben Johnson is that he loves a multi-headed backfield, right? Whether it's 2 or 3 guys. Swift is clearly going to be a favorite to lead the backfield in receptions this year, but early down work is going to be a legitimate competition. His goal line role is going to be mitigated, and it's something that was not a point of strength for him as it was. So I think we're just going to see Ben Johnson looking to utilize a lot of his shiny new toys that he handpicked instead of the guy that he just kind of inherited, who will see some workload, but not enough to where I think he's going to finish in this, back end RB2 territory.
I just think there's so many more players at the running back position in this range that have way more upside than Swift. Like you pretty much called it out, man. Like he's been in RB2 most of his career, which is fine. But imagine if Omarion Hampton eventually takes, the starting role towards the second half of the season. Travion Henderson, RJ Harvey. We've talked about Tony Pollard before as well, and he could take over the Titans backfield. I also even have
Johnson's right around here.
I got guys even like Isaiah Pacheco, Aaron Jones, Monty above him, and like I'm honestly debating guys like Caleb Johnson and Cam Scadaboo as well. So yeah, I mean that's where we are at this point, man. I mean, Scadaboo is getting a ton of.
Don't say we, not we.
Okay, so you would take DeAndre Swift over Scadaboo still, Steve?
1,000%. 1,000%.
I mean, I probably would too.
1,000%. Scadaboo isn't even the starter.
Guy.
Dude, he's been flat. He's been flashing pass catching
He had
ability.
a 10-yard catch. That's not great.
He's nasty, bro.
He's not nasty. You just like him because he's a little like spark plug for that little plucky Arizona State team. Listen, all right, I'm going to say this about DeAndre Swift, and everyone's going to get mad, and that's fine, and I don't care. I'll be the dude on the left who gets too emotional about everything. DeAndre Swift is like the Nickelback of running backs. Like, everyone hates DeAndre Swift for absolutely no reason. Like, every season he's a starter, he produces. He does exactly what you want him to do. He's fine. He outproduces RB22 like every single time. Ben Johnson
RB21 last year.
If Ben Johnson wanted
RB24 2 years ago.
Like, if he wanted to, he could have replaced him, but he didn't. So everyone's like, oh, he wants, like, who is his competition? Roshan Johnson? That's who you want me to be afraid of?
Monongai.
Who? Like,
Rutgers running back led the Big Ten.
No,
in
I'm
rushing.
not saying like I don't
I
actually know who he is. He's trash.
Dude, he led the Big Ten in rushing at Rutgers.
Stacked boxes for days. Exactly. He played a bunch of like nobodies. Rutgers couldn't pay someone to come play them.
Big Ten?
I mean, they're still
the
playing
bottom
Big Ten
end of the
opponents.
Big Ten. It's
Big
not like
Ten, brother.
How did he do against Ohio State? How did he do against like Michigan? Did he do anything against a good team, or did he just beat up on like Akron?
I mean,
like, let's stop with the nonsense of like.
I don't think that Roshan Johnson is a better runner than DeAndre Swift. I don't think that Monongai is a better runner than DeAndre Swift.
Okay.
My point is they are going to be in the mix and taking carries away from him.
Oh, I agree. I'm not saying he's going to be like 100% Chase Brown at the end of the season kind of workload. But what I'm saying is people are sitting here acting like DeAndre Swift has never once been a productive fantasy running back. He's been an RB2, borderline RB1 at different points in his career. He's someone you can put in your lineup, set it, forget it, feel pretty good about it. Even if he's a between the 20s runner, he is also their best pass catcher out of the backfield. Everything you want him to be, he's going to be for you. Like, if you're drafting him in this position, expecting him to be the RB5 on the season, yeah, you're going to be disappointed. But to sit here and like be like, oh, look at this guy that like no one's ever heard of, that they found at a joint practice one day, sweeping the floor of the visiting locker room. Like, that's so ridiculous that people do this over and over again with DeAndre Swift. Don't overthink it. Cam Scadaboo is better than DeAndre Swift already. Why? Because he had like a 10-yard run against nobody.
Was a bridge too far.
Yeah, like sure. Cam Scadaboo caught a pass against air, and Seth's ready to anoint him like a starter in New York. Like, but that it's not just you. He's turned into this like Twitter darling, and DeAndre Swift is doing everything and more that Cam Scadaboo could even hope to do. And we're like talking about him like should be the RB like 50.
I mean, I'm just saying.
How many carries do you think DeAndre Swift gets this year?
200, 250, maybe 250.
You said 200 or 250?
Somewhere in between there.
Okay.
He had 253 the year before.
25% more than 200. If he gets 200 carries, there's no way he cracks the top 35 at the position.
Let's
just 250. I think he can probably finish maybe around here. 25.
Well, what if he adds in 45, 50 catches?
I mean, that's usually what he's good for.
With 42 catches, he finished as running back. So I'm projecting like
300 touches, maybe like probably 300 touches on the year.
And his 3 seasons with Ben Johnson as his OC, he had 114 rushing attempts. He was banged up for some of that season, 151, still banged up a little bit, and then 99 in that last 14-game season that he had with Detroit. So, I mean, I'm old enough to remember, who was it? Jamal Williams out there having like 17 rushing touchdowns in a Ben Johnson offense that included Swift. Here's my thing, and first of all, I don't appreciate the dig on the Mac there. My opinion and my love for the Mac. And then I did check out Kyle Monongai's game log from last year. He did play Akron, funny enough, and he did set a career high 208 rushing yards in that game. So funny enough, but
what a shock.
But still, look what he did against Washington, 25 for 132. Look, UCLA goes over 100 against them. USC, 86 yards. Illinois
86 yards isn't good. 86 yards isn't good.
Illinois, 122 yards. Illinois is a top 15 team last year. So all I'm saying is look out for these other guys, and I'm fading DeAndre Swift. But let us know down in the comments below and in the live chat your feelings on the Bears backfield. We want to hear from you. We got Tyler checking in saying IBT, let's go. And he's out on Swift as well. Yeah, let's go. That's why I like you, Team Money. Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight and appreciate your input here. Let's move forward, though. And Steve, you do have one more bust candidate for us. Who is it?
I do. And this one actually kind of hurts because he really helped me have a very productive fantasy season. That's Terry McLaurin out there in Washington. Listen, this guy was buoyed by touchdowns in a way that very few guys are able to replicate. It was not a pretty path to a very productive season for him. There were multiple games where he had 3 catches, 4 catches, but one of them went for a touchdown, thankfully, and it saved his week. He had such a high touchdown percentage compared to his catches that it's just not replicable. They've brought in more talent on the offensive side of the ball, and I know people want to like just write off Deebo Samuel as like, and I'm also not on the I'm not in on Deebo Samuel, but he's still there, right? Like there's other guys who are going to eat in this offense. I don't think Terry McLaurin, unless he suddenly becomes a target hog out of nowhere, I'm out at wide receiver 16. This is more of a back end wide receiver 2 kind of situation for him because it just isn't replicable. Having like there was a game I think he had 2 catches and 2 touchdowns, and that was like normal. It just can't keep happening.
Yeah, it does feel like we're kind of drafting him at a ceiling as well, just because while he was a wide receiver 1 last year, so I guess we are getting a discount on that, but you know, kind of to your credit there, 117 targets. I mean, everyone else in this same range that he's going around were, you know, the Garrett Wilsons of the world, the Devontae Adams of the world, the Tyler Lockett's or the Tyreek Hill, excuse me, of the world. They're getting 150 plus targets, right? So I totally understand that McLaurin is, you know, due for a little bit of negative regression with the touchdowns coming his way, but still there is so much to like in Washington, Eric, and it's not a terrible price tag. He's currently 18th overall for the wide receivers in ECR at Fantasy Pros. I have him there as well, and I don't hate it, but he's someone I'm not necessarily targeting with other guys like Devontae and Garrett right in that same range as I alluded to.
Yeah, there are definitely a couple of guys in that part of the draft that I would probably take over Terry McLaurin. But I don't necessarily hate his price tag, right? You know, it would be one thing if he was being drafted as a top 10 receiver, as he finished last year. You know, then the touchdown regression, which to be fair is likely, would be very problematic in terms of him replicating last year's performance. Even if he regresses, you know, back to the mean from a touchdown rate perspective, I think he's got a pretty solid likelihood of paying off this price tag. I don't think we see him get back up into that top 10 whatsoever. Yeah. But look, with touchdown breakouts like this in specific, like you can just simply call it variance and say it's going to regress, and statistically the odds are in your favor.
Sure.
But some of this is schematic, right? Like one of the better go ball route runners in all of the NFL get with a quarterback who's not afraid to send it. Like,
sure.
Yes, I think that we'll see his touchdown total creep back down a bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if he posts like his second best year ever in terms of touchdowns in this upcoming season.
He nearly doubled his career high.
But look at the quarterbacks he was playing with too. You know, the Carson Wentz, the Alex Smiths of the world.
13 touchdowns on 82 catches. That's a lot.
If he goes down by what 25-30%, I think that's like a pretty aggressive regression model, and that would have him year 10.
If he hits 8 touchdowns, right? Say he gets 8. That's a significant drop off right now. That's, again, a lot of crazy things happened too that got Terry McLaurin to some of these things, like that last second Dallas touchdown that was like out of nowhere, goofiness, Hail Mary things.
Exactly how they drew it up. Yep.
Yeah, that also went into it. Like normally I'm like, I don't like when people are like, well, if you take the big plays away, they wouldn't have as good of a year. It's like, well, yeah, but they had the big plays. There's some goofy things that I'm like, I don't really count that as like I can count on that kind of thing happening every year.
No, I totally understand. I think it's a fascinating conversation. Just I don't think the wide receiver 1 upside is as guaranteed as some of these other guys. And in the chat, we have Brent saying McLaurin did get a lot of touchdowns, but still had over 1,000 passing yards. He is being drafted right around Mike Evans. Is that far off? To me, it is, just because we've seen Mike Evans do it year after year after year. No Chris Godwin potentially to begin the season. Emeka Ibuka still coming along as a rookie. So I have Evans up at wide receiver 14. He's still in that same tier as Terry McLaurin, so I think you can make the argument for one over the other. I just feel much more safer with Mike Evans despite the age, I think, here. So, all right. Well, I will go ahead and round us out with my final bust candidate of the evening, and it is Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals. Current ADP of 41 overall, wide receiver 18. This is another one where I don't hate the player. I just hate the price tag on him. Marvin Harrison Jr. finishes the wide receiver 41 in points per game last season, arguably a pretty replaceable player that season as a rookie. And while I'm always in for a potential year 2 breakout, nothing about his situation in the slightest has really changed. They didn't add any new weapons to draw off targets from him or to draw off coverage from. OC Drew Petzig, who used him primarily as a deep and end zone threat, still on the 6 for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray's height seems to somewhat give him issues over the past few seasons when targeting a number 1 wide receiver. And Marv is kind of like the anti-Amon-Ra St. Brown, where he had a great yard share when it came to air yards, but terrible efficiency metrics. I mean, I'm talking 107th in target separation, 73rd in yards per target, and 106 in true catch rate as well, 78.5, and his catch rate as a whole was terrible. So with Kyler Murray averaging an 87.0 quarterback rating when targeting him last season, I think it either takes a new quarterback or a new OC to fully unlock the keys to Maserati Marv. The only way I see him returning value at this cost right now, around that 3-4 turn, is if he has another outlier TD season, kind of similar to what we were saying with Terry McLaurin, where he goes for 12, 13 touchdowns. So in the early 4th round, give me guys like Alvin Kamara. Give me guys like Kenneth Walker, guaranteed production. Mike Evans that we just talked about. Devontae Adams even. Or like Jalen Hurts if I want to go quarterback and get an elite guy. So what are your thoughts here, Eric, on someone kind of as polarizing as Marv remains heading into year 2?
You went with the nice guy first.
I don't mind it, and we'll get to you, Steve. Don't you worry. We'll clear out and let you have your soapbox. I think that his price has fallen to an appropriate level to where I'm comfortable with it. Right. Not excited to click the name by any means, but I think his path to paying this off is pretty reasonable. Look, if Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't drafted so early in the actual NFL draft, and if he wasn't drafted so early in NFL drafts last year, there wouldn't be so much hoopla around what was less than expected, a bit of a subpar rookie campaign. If you look at the general context of incoming rookie wide receivers year in and year out, 62 catches for 885 yards and 8 scores is actually not too bad, right? So happiness is a function of expectation is something that I say ad nauseum on these airways. A lot of the issue with Marvin Harrison Jr. is exactly what you laid out, right? He is out here as one of the top receivers in terms of air yard share at least last year in 2024. He's top 7 receiver in deep targets, right? Like they were largely utilizing him in a way that was incredibly inefficient. And now you look at some of the reporting coming out of camps, they're working him on in-breaking routes, they're working him over the middle and in the short and intermediate game. I expect that to be a focal point of his role in the offense as we head into year 2. The reality is I don't think that he necessarily ever gets to the heights that people were drafting him last year around, but I think he can be a serviceable guy, and he's clearly the number 1 or the 1A target in his offense that shouldn't have a lot of target competition. So a little bit more of a floor play than a ceiling play for me, but a guy whose price tag I don't mind a lot. Steve, I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire because I know how you feel about Marvin Harrison Jr. Right now, you're on the clock heading into the 4th round. TikTok, your only 2 options: Marvin Harrison Jr. and Terry McLaurin.
Oh, it's not close.
Terry McLaurin, it's not close for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I appreciate the question.
It was your bust.
BHS Cardinals saying bust 2 years in a row. That's pretty much where I stand. And Fantasy Football Advice Network checking in saying hit that like and subscribe button for your guys over here at IBT Media. Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys. Looking forward to seeing the FSAN crew out there in Canton in just about a week from now.
No doubt.
So, Steve, I know you're low on Marv as a prospect. I do want to get into some of our preseason storylines. But are you just kind of in agreement with me that, like, nothing in the situation, like, let's put the prospect aside, nothing in Marv's situation has changed, and I just feel like we're getting aggressive on ranking this guy when even last season I was taking him in the second round happily, and he was pretty much a nothing burger if you got him in any leagues.
Yeah, and I'll leave any issue I have with his as a prospect alone, right? And I'll just talk about the situation. It hasn't improved in any way, shape, or form for him because we know that Trey McBride is still there. He's still going to be the target monster. But now we're hearing that they want to go more run heavy. They want James Conner to get more touches. They want Trey Benson to get more touches. They want this to be a run first kind of offense. Listen, sometimes and we are so quick sometimes to blame offensive coordinators and head coaches for how they use guys. They are some of the best coaches in the world. That's why they're in the NFL. I doubt they drafted Marvin Harrison at 4 and then were like, we don't know how to use him. Sometimes you just kind of have what you have, right? And the scheme isn't going to shift. And for them not to bring anyone in and help him out, that is scary because sometimes these prospects do need a little bit of a guiding hand just to be like, hey, listen, I can't take the number one corner and their safety every single play.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it a couple of years ago when T. Higgins was a rookie. He kind of got brought along. He had someone like AJ Green kind of, playing that X receiver right off the bat, stepped into that role, and then eventually Jamar Chase kind of, usurps him for that. But yeah, I do agree. I mean, how many good seasons have we seen from pretty mid wide receiver twos who have benefited from a stud being out there playing the X? I mean, there was a time where Michael Gallup was nearly a top 15 wide receiver.
Juju Smith-Schuster went for like 1,400 yards.
Yeah, let's say Juju Smith-Schuster, right, out on the Berg. So absolutely. Limelight Worship saying Marv got jacked this offseason. Does that matter?
No.
And also saying, please, praying for Benson season. Well, you're not going to find any more higher Benson truthers out there in the streets than Steve. But look, man, he was always going to get bigger, right? Like, this is a guy who's maturing into his body. We see it more and more with college football players opting to enter the NFL draft early, that they're not fully into that adult body yet, into that professional body. So
I also don't know if he got jacked. It looks like he kind of did some push-ups before he took the picture and had a little bit of a pump going on.
Yeah, I also think he was pretty jacked to begin with, right? Like, I mean, this was the best receiver in college football for a while. So, guys, great discussions on the sleepers. I do want to round out the program with a segment we're bringing back tonight. We haven't touched on in a while. It's bear in mind or BS. Let's jump in.
This just in, breaking news. Man, that sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me.
All right, it's bear in mind or BS, the segment where we take you around the NFL training camp's news cycle and let you know what fantasy managers need to bear in mind and what's a load of malarkey. Let's start down there in your neck of the woods, Eric, where the Houston Texans have placed running back Joe Mixon on a non-football injury list. He's expected to, quote, be okay fairly soon, per Adam Schefter. How do you guys feel about this? Are we avoiding Mixon, currently RB20 overall and 55 going off the board in Fantasy Pros ECR? I have, some interest, I think, in Nick Chubb. I have him right around that top 50 running back mark. He's RB59 in ECR. Woody Marks, RB87. I'm a lot higher on these backup Texans running backs now, given this news, Eric. Do you feel similar, and are you out on Mixon at his current price tag?
To your latter question, yes, I am out on Mixon at his current price tag. I'm pretty close to the Texans beat, and I know that this was an injury that not that long ago was being reported that it wasn't going to hamper him at all, and he'd be ready for the start of training camp, and then he'd be ready for the start of preseason. And now he ends up on injured reserve, and not just the PUP, right? Like the non-football injury list. Like there's some oddness to whatever led to this injury that we're not getting a full picture of. So anytime a situation gets murky like this, that's usually a time where I start to peel back a little bit. So I won't find myself with much more of Joe Mixon. In terms of the alternatives there in the Texans backfield, bit more on the Marks train than I am with regard to Nick Chubb. I think Chubb is probably the better early season target. I think that, reports out of camp is that he looks strong and explosive. I have limited faith about his ability to maintain that over the course of his on a flex position for a couple of weeks or whatever it might be. Nick Chubb is probably the better target, but I really like what they got in this kid Marks in the draft this year, right? You're getting him as RB 87 off the board. He's a pretty proficient pass catcher, and for my money, an even better pass blocker, which is obviously critical to the success of CJ Stroud and this Texans offense heading into year number 3 of this install, right? So I think that Marks you might have to be a little bit more patient with, but I love the price tag, and I think on the season as a whole, you got a pretty good shot at getting value out of him.
So it sounds like Eric is certainly bearing this in mind when it comes to his fantasy rankings for the season. Steve, I asked Debro earlier on the Fantasy Pros, a live stream over there on twitch.tv/fantasypros, that is this a backfield we should be getting invested with the likes of Chubb or Marks, taking them as potentially our last pick in redraft, or is this just a backfield to avoid? And he seemed very much out on this Texans backfield as a whole, and that if he's getting invested, it is going to be through the air with the likes of someone like Jaylin Noel, like Nico Collins, like Jaden Higgins. Do you feel similar?
Yeah, I'm definitely I am bearing this in mind. If his ADP falls a little bit more, I'm probably going to take him.
Oh, wow.
But you saw me kind of get a little distracted while Eric was talking, because while you two were yapping, I had to make sure Damian Pierce didn't die. He's still there as far as I'm concerned, right? Like, he still exists.
I'm pretty sure he's banged up though, even to
he's a little banged up.
The list.
Okay, but we're gonna say Damian Pierce is a little banged up. They said he should be fine for ready to go. Nick Chubb, no, that's a no for me, dog.
Okay.
Woody Marks, maybe, but as you know what, no, leave them all on the free agent wire. If Mixon falls to running back 25 or later, though, you should be picking him. You should be picking him.
All right. Well, some divided areas of this house. And let's go ahead and let's move forward out to Los Angeles, where Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford not practicing this week yet again with back soreness. I've kind of made the argument that I think that is why Davante Adams' ECR ranking and ADP is, pretty low towards the mid back end of wide receiver 2 territory, Steve, because he is tied to someone like Matthew Stafford, who is an aging quarterback who has a history of injuries. They have Jimmy Garoppolo, who is taking first team reps in the interim. That said, I am kind of willing to risk it for the biscuit with both Adams and Puka because the upside is so high. But is this something we need to bear in mind when we are considering Rams pass catchers? Do you think that Stafford's health already not great to begin the season?
No, you don't. And this is so reminiscent to me of, I don't know if either of you love the NBA, but I do. And there was one time at the end of the Spurs dynasty where Greg Popovich sat Tim Duncan out for a game, and the reason listed was old. That was, and that is why Matthew Stafford isn't there. He's old. He's just listen, he's fine, right? I'm sure he's sore.
I hope.
He probably is. But him and Sean McVay know he doesn't need a training camp. He doesn't need to push himself. He's ready to go. He's a vet. He knows what he's doing. Get Jimmy Garoppolo those first team reps in case something does happen, so he knows what he's supposed to do.
Sure.
But when the season rolls around, we know how Matt Stafford is. We watched this man blow out an ACL and finish a drive. He'll be there when the time comes. Matthew Stafford is going to be fine, and Davante Adams and Puka Nacua are going to feast from the wide receiver kingmaker himself.
Eric, are you with Steve in alignment that this might just be a pile of bull that we're getting served out there in Los Angeles?
Yeah, this smells like some BS. I have no doubt, as the injury report indicates, that his back is in fact sore. But I think that we've seen Sean McVay take a pretty conservative approach to the preseason and the offseason on the whole, right? He was one of the forefathers of resting his starters through the entirety of a preseason a few years back, right? So I think this is much more about keeping him in game shape for the regular season than it is anything to be concerned about his availability for week 1.
Okay. Yeah, and that's kind of what the comments are saying in the live chat as well. Brent saying Stafford is tough. He will play. They're just playing it safe. And also thinking Adams is a value. I'm with you there. And Angie saying old with a laughing emoji. Old by NFL terms. I'm old by NFL terms. Steve's out of the league if he's a running back at this point. You just turned 30. Oh,
yeah. I'm fine. I'm 31.
Darby Cliff is 29, brother. Darby Cliff is 29.
Derrick Henry's 32.
I know, but he's Derrick Henry. He's immortal.
You just wanted to draft Nick Chubb, isn't he like 75?
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like it's all
now.
NFL
If we're talking
terms.
about Eric,
yeah, Eric.
Then my game tape's in black and white, y'all.
Let's stay at the running back position here and go to the Jaguars running back Tank Bigsby, getting the biggest workload so far in Jaguars camp. This is per Sports Illustrated. John Shipley. I did verify John Shipley is a real person. He's not AI. So SI coming in here with the news. How do you feel about it, Eric? Are you buying that Tank Bigsby could have the biggest workload this season? We also know that one of my favorite rookies this season, Bashaw Tune, who helped us cash a very nice ticket to be the fastest running back at the NFL Combine, was kind of banged up starting out Jaguars training camp. I have Tune and ETN above Bigsby in my rankings, but I would be lying if I didn't say I'm a little bit nervous after this reporting coming out this week, man.
Yeah, I think this is fair to bear in mind, but there has to be context applied to it, right? Getting the biggest workload with the first team does not mean that he is going to be a feature back in this offense, right? I think that we are very likely looking at a circumstance where all three of these guys end up getting varying degrees of workload. And anytime that that's the case, that there is a multi-threaded approach at a singular position, usually the one guy who's not like the others is the one that is going to get the highest or the largest piece of the pie in that split, right? Tank Bigsby is the purest between the tackles runner of the three. So his grasp on the early down work, I think, is going to be borderline a stranglehold, while ETN and Tootin are going to fight out for a little bit of hurry up work, a little bit of passing game work, maybe a tiny bit of red zone work. But I don't think that we're going to see any of them get past like 40-45% opportunity share in this backfield. So I think Bigsby represents a value. I just don't think that we should overreact and draft him like he's going to be the bell cow.
Steve, we got big boy problems in Big D. Left tackle Tyler Guyton. He's going to be missing 4 to 6 weeks with a bone fracture. Also, guard Robert Jones. He suffered a broken bone in his neck, expected to miss 2 to 3 months. I felt like I've been the low guy on Javonte Williams. I just refuse to rank him higher. Just because I was getting such a value on him in those early best balls this offseason. However, I was in the Poconos over the weekend. I was sitting down by the lake, enjoying a little bush light, adjusting my ranks, and I got Javonte Williams now up to RB29. Should I maybe rethink that and recalibrate, Steve, especially given the news about the Cowboys offensive line? Is this something we need to bear in mind, or is this BS when it comes to drafting both Cowboys running backs and or pass catchers?
All right, so these are like two very different problems. Yes, this is a big problem for Dallas. This is a huge problem. As far as Javonte Williams goes, they could have the best offensive line they've ever had in Dallas, and he shouldn't be nowhere near your RB29. Let's call that right now. But this is a big problem. This is a huge problem for Dallas because their offensive line last year was abysmal. And they were terrible. Now their offensive line is injured, and they're going to be bad again. Listen, Dak suffered a very, very, very complicated and devastating ankle injury a few seasons ago that really reduced his ability to be mobile. His mobility took a hit, and it is not a knock on Dak Prescott to say that. That was a gruesome and very difficult to return from injury. The fact that he's back on the field at all is a testament to his work ethic and his talent. A bad offensive line with a less than stellar mobile quarterback equals big problems in Big D. All right. That is a huge problem. You cannot have these really kind of bad and unproven running backs, an injured offensive line, and kind of a statue now in Dak Prescott, and really expect much to happen in terms of production.
Mhm. Eric, I definitely understand what Steve's saying here, but at the same time, the one good thing about this offense in years past is it's usually pretty consolidated, right? It's CeeDee Lamb getting a boatload of targets. It's usually that wide receiver too. Brandon Cooks in recent years now entered George Pickens. Jake Ferguson kind of cleaning up the underneath and the end zone looks. And then whoever the running back is by, week 7, week 8, usually gets a lot of burn down the stretch. So I am concerned about the Cowboys, but I'm still not shying away from drafting them when it comes to fantasy. I just don't have any exposure in the betting markets and probably won't given this news.
Yeah, I think it's fair to bear this in mind and to take a bit more of a conservative stance in terms of your wagering exposure to the Cowboys. I do tend to agree that on the offensive side of the ball, I have a lot of interest, but more so in the passing game than in the ground game, right? Like, you're going to have an amalgam of guys that are probably going to vie for workload in this backfield over the course of the season. And it's going to be hard to get season-long value, at least requisite season-long value out of any of them. I think that it's going to be tough sledding for anyone that's trying to stand behind this line for the early part of the season. But the good news, at least where you can find it, in terms of Guyton, we're talking about a bone break. And fractures are one of the clearest recovery timelines in all of the injury.
Sure,
games,
yeah,
right?
great point.
4 to 6 weeks.
Great
We're
point.
about 4 to 6 weeks out from the start of the season, right? So, there could be a world where his actual game time missed is fairly minimal at this point.
Last headline here for the evening. Commanders rookies Jacory, Croskey-Merritt out of the backfield, as well as Jaylin Lane also getting some run here with the first team. Croskey-Merritt has made a huge impression at the first week of training camp. Quote, according to Grant Paulson, coming from 106.7 The Fan, Lane has taken some snaps with the first team offense during training camp that we're hearing from Brian Manning of the Commanders Wire. So with this being said, Steve, just a late round dart throw, interested in someone like Croskey-Merritt or someone like Jaylin Lane, if the ball is going to be spread out here? Is this worth, a 16th, 17th round pick, or maybe someone we're just keeping, on that watch list moving into the season?
It's not worth bearing in mind for them. It's definitely worth bearing in mind for Brian Robinson, though. If he's losing touches, that's more of a problem. But it kind of turns into I don't want any of it because I'm not gonna go hunting around, right, for like one of 7 people touching the ball out of a backfield.
Yeah, I can understand that. We might see Deebo Samuel in there as well. Eric, any last round appeal for GCM or Jaylin Lane here out of Virginia?
Drafting today, probably not. But as we get further through camp and the preseason, I'm open to changing that position, right? Specifically,
so you're bearing in mind slightly.
Yeah, right. Like when it comes to OTAs and camp and preseason games, it's all data points, right? And the more you can accumulate before your draft, the better. But what I will say with regard to Croskey-Merritt in particular is that the trajectory that he's on looks very, very appealing, right? There is some buzz out of camp for him, breaking some ankles and, flashing some jump cuts that got people's attention. And it got enough attention to where it then earned him first team snaps today. And according to reporting, looked pretty good in those first team snaps, right? So it's a little bit more about the overall momentum. If we see him get more first team snaps and still continue to perform well, then I think he's someone that is worth speculating on in the later rounds, especially when the primary competition is Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr., who's good for 2.5 yards in a cloud of dust, right? It doesn't take much to separate yourself from the incumbent guys in Washington. So if he continues to turn heads, like this is where we see some of these late camp sleepers start to steam up.
Specifically in dynasty formats, I'm adding both these guys to my roster if I haven't already. I already have a lot of GCM shares. Pretty much what was the guy I was either targeting like with the last pick of the 4th round of some rookie drafts or just off the waiver wire. So I was already kind of in on him. And Jaylin Lane, very interesting receiver coming out of the ACC, big play threat. So be exciting to see kind of if he is just that, the guy they're taking a couple shots on down the field, like how they used to use Diami Brown, or if he kind of more slides in that Diami Brown of last postseason where it might be good for 4 to 5 catches a game. So Only time will tell. That is going to do it for us tonight on the In Between Fans Football podcast. If you've ridden with us this long, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the whole channel. If you're new, we've got NFL betting and fantasy football advice for it, college football betting, including some action. Yes, even though Steve likes to hate on the Mid-American Athletic Conference, we also have NASCAR betting, PGA betting, and entertainment betting, all to help you cash more and to enjoy the ride along the way. Be sure to check out the website, inbetweenmedia.com, for some written content and upcoming live events, including Draft Night Out and the IBG Classic next week in Canton, Ohio, a part of that Fantasy Football Expo. For Eric Romoff and Steve Lawson, of course, our guy in the back end, Kyle Scott, I'm Seth Woolcock. Thanks for watching, and keep it in between till next time, y'all.